It's almost time you truly became family, Lucille." Laura's words hung in the air like smoke from an expensive cigarette, sweet-scented but toxic. I paused in the middle of arranging the cheese board, my hands steady despite the chill that ran down my spine. "My name is Lucille, and I've been playing the perfect wife for 10 years. Tonight, like every other family dinner at the Grey estate, I was performing my role flawlessly, arranging appetizers, refilling wine glasses, and smiling at conversations that somehow always managed to exclude me. What do you mean by that, Laura?" I asked, keeping my voice light as I placed the last piece of aged brie on the marble board. Stefan's mother smiled that practiced smile she'd perfected over decades of charity galas and country club luncheons. "Oh, you know, marriage is about more than just companionship." The way she said companionship made it sound like a dirty word. "Mother, please." Stefan appeared at my elbow, his hand finding the small of my back in that possessive way that used to make me feel protected. Now it just felt like a claim of ownership. "Lucille has been family since the day we married." "Of course she has, darling." Laura's eyes never left mine. "I simply meant that sometimes family requires sacrifice. I'd heard this song before. Different verses, same chorus. When Stefan needed someone to manage his calendar, coordinate his business dinners, and smooth over his social mistakes, I was family. When his father needed someone to organize his medical appointments and insurance claims, I was family. When Caden needed someone to clean up his messes with suppliers and creditors, I was family. But when they gathered for their real conversations, the ones about money, business decisions, and family legacy, suddenly I was just Stefan's wife." "Lucille's already sacrificed plenty," Stefan said, and I almost laughed at the defensive tone in his voice. "Almost." "Have I?" I asked, genuinely curious to hear his answer. He blinked. "Well, yes. You gave up your law practice to support me." Gave up. As if it had been my choice. As if the constant pressure, the subtle suggestions that my career was too demanding for a proper wife, the endless guilt trips about neglecting my duties hadn't worn me down until quitting seemed like the only option. "That's right," I said. "I did." Laura's smile widened. "And look how well it's worked out. Stefan's practice is thriving, the family is stable, and you've become such an accomplished hostess. An accomplished hostess. 10 years of legal training, summa cum laude from law school, 3 years at one of the city's most prestigious firms, and I'd become an accomplished hostess. The roast smells wonderful," Delilah announced as she swept into the kitchen, her heels clicking against the marble floors like a countdown timer. Caden's wife had perfected the art of the backhanded compliment. "Store-bought?" "Homemade?" I replied. "Oh!" She looked genuinely surprised. "I would have sworn it was from that little place downtown, the one that does the catering for the country club." "Nope, just me and a cookbook." Stefan squeezed my waist. "Lucille's been experimenting with new recipes. She has so much time now." So much time. Because what else would I do with my days? It wasn't like I had a career to return to, or professional relationships to maintain, or any identity beyond being Mrs. Stefan Gray. "Where's Caden?" Laura asked, glancing at her watch. "He said he had something important to discuss tonight." "He's in the study with Dad," Delilah said. "They've been in there for an hour. Very serious conversation." I felt that familiar twist in my stomach. Serious conversations in the Gray family usually meant someone needed money, and when someone needed money, they looked to Stefan. And when Stefan needed money, he looked to our joint savings account, the account that was joint in name only, the account that I'd been quietly funding for years with my grandmother's trust fund, the one inheritance that remained solely mine, the one financial lifeline I'd managed to keep separate from the Gray family machine. "I should check on dinner," I said, extracting myself from Stefan's grip. "Don't be long," Laura called after me. "I have a feeling tonight's conversation is going to involve all of us." I paused in the doorway looking back at the three of them. Stefan, handsome and confident, already reaching for his phone to check his messages. Delilah, perfectly coiffed and calculating, her eyes scanning the room like she was appraising everything for auction. Laura, regal and manipulative, watching me with the patience of a spider waiting for a fly. All of us. Right. I walked toward the kitchen, but I could hear them talking behind me, their voices dropping to that conspiratorial whisper families use when they think the help isn't listening. "She's been different lately," Delilah was saying. "Different how?" Stefan asked. "Quieter, more observant." Laura's laugh was like crystal breaking. "Lucille has always been observant. It's what makes her so useful." Useful. There it was. I stood in the kitchen, surrounded by the dinner I'd spent all day preparing, and felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. 10 years of being useful, 10 years of being the perfect wife, the gracious hostess, the family problem solver. 10 years of being taken for granted. But tonight felt different. Tonight, with Laura's cryptic warning and the serious conversation happening behind closed doors, I had the distinct feeling that my usefulness was about to be tested in ways I'd never imagined. The timer on the oven chimed, and I pulled out the roast. Perfect, as always, just like me. The dining room felt like a courtroom when we all finally gathered around the mahogany table. Caden sat rigid in his chair, his usually perfect hair dishevelled, while Alejandro kept clearing his throat like he was about to deliver bad news to a terminal patient. "Well?" Laura prompted, cutting into her roast with surgical precision. "You said this was urgent." Caden set down his fork. His hands were shaking. "The business is in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Stefan asked. "The kind that means we're going to lose everything if we don't act fast." Caden's voice cracked on the last word. "I made some investments. Diversification, you know, expanding into new markets." "Without consulting anyone," Alejandro muttered. "Dad, please." Caden shot him a look. "The point is, they didn't pan out. We're hemorrhaging money and our creditors are calling in debts." Delilah reached for her wine glass. "How much money?" $500,000, maybe more. The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, counting down the seconds until someone exploded. $500,000. Laura's voice was barely a whisper. "I can fix this," Caden said quickly. "I just need time. And capital." Stefan leaned back in his chair. "How much capital?" 500,000 should cover it. Maybe a little more for cushion." I nearly choked on my wine. $500,000. "It's not as much as it sounds," Caden said, his eyes darting between Stefan and his parents. "It's an investment in the family's future." "Where exactly do you think we're going to get $500,000? I asked. Stefan's hand found mine across the table. "Actually, we have it." The room went quiet again, but this time all eyes were on me. I felt like a deer caught in headlights. "We do," I managed. "Our savings account," Stefan said, his voice steady and confident. "We've been putting money away for years. It's time to put it to good use." My mouth went dry. Our savings account, the one I'd been funding with my trust money, thinking we were building a future together. The one Stefan apparently saw as a family emergency fund. "Stefan," I said carefully, "that money is ours," he finished, "and family comes first." Laura clasped her hands together. "Oh, Lucille, this is exactly what I meant earlier. This is your chance to truly become part of this family. By giving away our life savings? By saving the family business," Delilah corrected. "The business that's supported all of us for generations. The business that I've never worked for," I pointed out. "But you've benefited from it," Caden said, his desperation making him bold. "This house, your lifestyle, Stefan's success, it all comes from Grey Industries." I looked around the table. Stefan was nodding along with his brother. Alejandro was staring at his plate. Laura was watching me with those calculating eyes. Delilah was practically vibrating with anticipation. "What if I say no?" I asked. The question hung in the air like a challenge. Why would you say no? Stefan asked, his voice carrying a warning I'd never heard before. Because it's $500,000, Stefan. Our entire safety net. It's not gone forever, Caden insisted. It's an investment. You'll get it back with interest. When? When the business recovers. And if it doesn't recover, Caden's face flushed red. It will. I'm not going to let my family down. You already have, Alejandro said quietly. Dad, it's true. The older man finally looked up from his plate. You've put us all in an impossible position. Laura reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her fingers were cold. Lucille, dear, I know this is overwhelming, but sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the people we love. I've been making sacrifices for 10 years, and we're grateful, Stefan said. But this is different. This is about survival. Whose survival? The business or the family? They're the same thing, Laura said firmly. I pulled my hand away from hers. No, they're not. Stefan's jaw tightened. Lucille, we need to discuss this privately. Why? It affects everyone here, doesn't it? Because you're being unreasonable. I'm being unreasonable. I stood up from the table. I'm being asked to hand over $500,000 to bail out a business I have no stake in, run by someone who just admitted to making reckless investments without consulting anyone. And I'm unreasonable for having questions. It's not just anyone, Delilah snapped. It's family. Right, family. I looked around the table again. The same family that's never included me in a single business decision. The same family that treats me like hired help most of the time. But now, when you need money, suddenly I'm family. That's not fair, Stefan said. Isn't it? Laura stood up, her composure finally cracking. Lucille, I think you're forgetting that you've never contributed a single dollar to this family's success. Everything you have, everything you are, comes from Stefan's hard work and this family's generosity. The words hit me like a physical blow. Never contributed. Everything I am. Is that what you all think? I asked, my voice barely steady. No one answered. Stefan pushed back from the table. We'll finish this conversation at home. No, I said. We'll finish it right here, right now. Lucille, do you want the money or not? Caden leaned forward. Yes, we need it. Then you'll get my answer tomorrow. I walked out of the dining room, leaving behind the perfect roast, the perfect table setting, and the perfect family that had just shown me exactly what they thought of me. Behind me, I could hear Stefan apologizing to his family for my behavior. Of course he was. Stefan didn't speak to me the entire drive home. The silence stretched between us like a chasm, broken only by the sound of his fingers drumming against the steering wheel. When we pulled into our driveway, he finally turned to me. What the hell was that? That was me asking questions about our money. Our money? He laughed, but there was no humour in it. Lucille, it's time you understood what marriage is really about. It's about partnership. It's about supporting each other when things get tough. I've been supporting you for 10 years, and now I need you to support my family. I got out of the car without responding. Inside the house, Stefan poured himself a scotch and sat down at the kitchen island. I'm calling the bank tomorrow, he said. I'll set up the transfer. Fine. He looked surprised. Fine? Yes, I'll facilitate it. You'll facilitate it? I'll make sure the money gets where it needs to go. Stefan's shoulders relaxed for the first time all evening. Thank you. I know this is hard, but you're doing the right thing. I'll need to meet with the lawyers first. Make sure everything's legal and above board. Of course, whatever you need. I kissed his cheek. I'm going to bed. It's been a long day. Lucille, he caught my hand as I passed. I love you. You know that, right? I know. But as I climbed the stairs, I wondered if he'd still love me tomorrow. The next morning I made 2 phone calls. The first was to the Gray family lawyer, scheduling a meeting for the following week. The second was to Autumn. Lucille, it's been forever. How are you? I need to see you today, if possible. Is everything okay? Can we meet at that coffee shop near your office, the one with the private booths in the back? I'll be there in an hour. Autumn looked exactly the same as she had in law school. Sharp suit, sharper eyes, and the kind of confidence that came from winning more cases than she lost. She was already seated when I arrived, 2 cups of coffee waiting on the table. You look terrible, she said without preamble. Thanks, that's exactly what I needed to hear. Sorry, but you do. What's going on? I told her everything. The dinner, the money, Stefan's assumption that our savings were his to give away. Autumn listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each detail. How much of that savings account is actually yours? She asked when I finished. Most of it, maybe 80%. From your grandmother's trust? Yes. And Stefan knows about the trust? He knows I have it. He doesn't know how much. Autumn leaned back in her chair. Lucille, what exactly are you asking me to do? I want to know my options. Your options for what? I took a deep breath. Divorce. The word hung between us like a confession. Are you sure? No, but I need to know what it would look like. Autumn pulled out her phone and started typing. I'll need to see all your financial records, bank statements, trust documents, everything. Can you get them to me? Yes. And Lucille, don't sign anything until we talk again. That afternoon I drove to the bank and requested copies of all our account statements for the past 5 years. The teller, a young woman with kind eyes, handed me a thick envelope. Is everything all right, Mrs. Gray? Just doing some financial planning. But as I sat in my car in the parking lot, flipping through the statements, everything was definitely not all right. There were withdrawals I didn't remember making, transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, small amounts at first, then larger ones, all authorized with Stefan's signature. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone. Autumn, it's me. We need to meet again. What did you find? He's been taking money from the account for months, maybe years. How much? I did quick math in my head. At least 50,000, maybe more. Son of a bitch. Can he do that? Legally? It's a joint account, so technically, yes. But morally, ethically, hell no. What do I do? You come to my office right now, and Lucille, bring everything. An hour later, I was sitting across from Autumn's desk, watching her review the bank statements with the intensity of a surgeon examining x-rays. This is bad, she said finally. How bad? He's been systematically draining your contributions to fund what looks like business expenses. Look at these dates. They correspond with quarterly tax payments for Gray Industries. He's been using my money to keep his family's business afloat, without telling you, without asking permission. I felt sick. For how long? Based on these statements, at least 3 years. 3 years. Lucille, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Okay. Do you want to save your marriage? I stared at the papers scattered across her desk. Evidence of betrayal laid out in black and white. Numbers that told a story I'd been too trusting to see. I don't know if there's anything left to save. Then let's talk about protecting what's yours. As Autumn outlined my options, I thought about Stefan at home, probably calling his family to tell them the good news. That his wife had agreed to hand over $500,000. That the family crisis was solved. He had no idea that his wife had just discovered 3 years' worth of lies, and he definitely had no idea that his wife was sitting in a lawyer's office, planning her exit strategy. How long do I have? I asked. Before what? Before I have to decide. Autumn looked at me seriously. Lucille, you've already decided. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. She was right. I'd made my decision the moment Laura told me I'd never contributed anything to the family. The moment Stefan assumed our money was his to give away. The moment I realized I'd been funding my own oppression for 3 years. Now I just had to figure out how to make them all pay for it. The next few days I became the perfect wife again. I smiled at Stefan's jokes, asked about his day, and even volunteered to coordinate the family meeting with the lawyers. If he noticed anything different about me, he didn't mention it. "You're being wonderful about this," he said over breakfast, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I know it wasn't easy to hear about Caden's situation." "Family is family," I replied, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "Exactly. And after we get through this crisis, things will go back to normal." Normal, right, that afternoon Laura called. "Lucille, dear, I wanted to apologise for last night. I think we were all a bit emotional. It's understandable. It's a stressful situation. You're being so gracious. I've always admired that about you. Thank you, Laura. I was wondering if you'd like to have lunch tomorrow, just the two of us. I feel like we never get to talk." I almost laughed. In 10 years of marriage, Laura had never once invited me to lunch alone. I'd love that. Wonderful. The country club at noon. Perfect. After I hung up, I called Autumn. "They're circling the wagons," I told her. "What do you mean?" "Laura wants to have lunch. She's never wanted to have lunch with me before. They're worried you might change your mind." "Good. Let them worry. Lucille, I've been working on separating your assets. We need to move fast." "How fast?" "I can have new accounts set up by tomorrow, but you need to transfer your trust funds before that family meeting. Won't Stefan notice?" "Not if we're smart about it. We'll leave enough in the joint account to cover normal expenses. The rest goes into accounts only you control. Do it." The next day I arrived at the country club 15 minutes early. Laura was already there, seated at a corner table with a perfect view of the golf course. She was wearing her pearls and that smile that never quite reached her eyes. "Lucille, you look lovely." "Thank you, so do you." We ordered salads and made small talk about the weather, the club's new chef, and Delilah's latest charity project. Then Laura leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I want you to know how much this means to us. What you're doing for Caden." "I haven't done anything yet." "But you will, because you understand what family means." "Do I?" Laura's smile faltered slightly. "Of course you do. You've been part of this family for 10 years. "Have I? Because sometimes it feels like I'm more of an employee than a family member." "Oh, Lucille." Laura reached across the table and patted my hand. "You're being too sensitive. We all have our roles to play. And what's my role? You're Stefan's wife. You support him, you make his life easier, you help him succeed. And in return, you get to be part of something bigger than yourself. You get security, status, a beautiful home." "I had all of those things before I married Stefan." Laura's smile disappeared entirely. "Did you? Because from what I understand, you were just another lawyer in a sea of lawyers. Now you're a Grey." "Right. A Grey who's never contributed anything to the family." "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." I set down my fork. "You meant exactly that." Laura straightened in her chair. "Lucille, I think you're misunderstanding the situation." "Am I? Because it seems pretty clear to me. When you need something, I'm family. When you don't, I'm just Stefan's wife." "That's not true, isn't it? Tell me, Laura, in 10 years of marriage, how many times have you asked for my opinion on a business decision? Business is men's work. Is that what you were going to say? I was going to say complicated. I went to law school, Laura. I think I can handle complicated." Laura's composure was cracking. "This isn't about your intelligence, Lucille. It's about loyalty. My loyalty has never been in question. Hasn't it? Because right now it feels like you're looking for reasons not to help us." I leaned back in my chair. "Maybe I am. Why? Because for the first time in 10 years, someone is asking me what I want instead of telling me what I should do." "And what do you want?" "I want to be treated like an equal partner in my own marriage." Laura laughed, but It sounded forced. Marriage isn't about equality, dear. It's about complementary roles. Whose role is it to give away $500,000 without consulting their spouse? Stefan consulted you. Stefan informed me. There's a difference. Laura's mask slipped completely. Lucille, I'm going to be very direct with you. This family has given you everything. Your lifestyle, your social position, your identity. Without us, you're nothing. The words hit me like a slap, but I kept my voice steady. Is that what you really think? It's what I know. I stood up from the table. Then I guess we have nothing more to discuss. Sit down, Lucille. No. If you walk away from this table, you're walking away from this family. Maybe that's exactly what I need to do. I left Laura sitting there, her mouth open in shock. As I walked through the country club dining room, I could feel eyes following me. By tomorrow, half the club would know that Stefan's wife had stormed out on his mother. Good, let them talk. When I got home, there was a note on my dresser, written in a child's careful handwriting. Aunt Lucille, I heard Mom and Dad talking about money stuff. I don't understand it all, but I wanted you to know that I think you're really smart and brave. Love, Isla. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the note, and for the first time in days, I smiled. At least someone in this family saw me for who I really was. My phone buzzed. A text from Autumn. Accounts are set up, funds transferred. You're officially financially independent again. Another text, this one from Stefan. Mum said lunch didn't go well. We need to talk when I get home. I looked at Isla's note again, then at my phone. Stefan wanted to talk. Perfect, because I had a few things to say too. The lawyer's office smelled like leather and old money. The Gray family sat around the mahogany conference table like they were attending a board meeting, which I suppose they were. Stefan had his arm draped possessively across the back of my chair. Caden kept checking his phone. Laura sat perfectly straight, her hands folded, still radiating disapproval from our lunch 2 days ago. Delilah was the only one who looked nervous. "Thank you all for coming," said Mr. Morrison, the family attorney. He was exactly what you'd expect, silver-haired, expensive suit, the kind of man who'd been handling wealthy families' problems for decades. "I understand we're here to facilitate a transfer of funds." "That's correct," Stefan said. "My wife and I want to transfer $500,000 to help stabilize the family business." "Very generous," Morrison said, pulling out a thick folder. "I've prepared the necessary paperwork." "Before we sign anything," I said, "I'd like to review the details." Morrison looked surprised. "Of course, though it's fairly straightforward." He spread the documents across the table. Transfer forms, loan agreements, business partnership papers. I picked up the first document and started reading. "Lucille," Stefan said quietly, "we don't need to go through every line." "I do." "Why?" Caden asked. Don't you trust us?" I looked up from the papers. "Should I?" The room went silent. "What's that supposed to mean?" Delilah asked. "It means I want to understand exactly what I'm signing." Laura cleared her throat. "Lucille, dear, perhaps you're overthinking this." "Am I?" I set down the first document and picked up the second. "This says the money is going to Gray Industries as an emergency loan." "That's right," Caden said, "at 0% interest." "We're family, with no collateral." "Lucille," Stefan's voice carried a warning, "and no repayment schedule." Morrison shifted in his chair. "Mrs. Gray, if you have concerns about the terms—" "I do have concerns." I looked around the table. "I'm curious about something, Stefan." "What?" "Have you told everyone here the truth about our finances?" Stefan's hand tightened on my shoulder. "What do you mean?" "I mean, have you told them where this money is actually coming from?" "It's coming from our savings account." "Right, our savings account," I smiled. "The one that I've been funding for years with my grandmother's trust." The room went dead quiet. "Your what?" Laura asked. "My trust fund? The one my grandmother left me. the one that's been providing about 80% of what Stefan calls our savings. Caden's face went pale. Stefan, you said... I said it was our money, Stefan interrupted. Which it is. We're married. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I had my lawyer look into that. Turns out, trust funds remain separate property even in marriage, unless they're explicitly commingled. They are commingled, Stefan said quickly. They're in our joint account. We're in our joint account, Stefan froze. What? I moved them yesterday, back to accounts under my name only. The explosion was immediate. You did what? Caden shouted. You can't do that, Delilah said. Actually, I can, and I did. Stefan's face was turning red. Lucille, what the hell? Stefan! My voice cut through the chaos. Before you say another word, I have a question for you. What? Did you or did you not take money from our joint account to pay Grey Industries' quarterly taxes? The colour drained from his face. Answer the question. Lucille, did you take $50,000 from our account over the past 3 years to cover business expenses? Morrison was frantically taking notes. Laura looked like she was about to faint. Caden was staring at his brother in horror. It was temporary, Stefan said weakly. Temporary? For 3 years? I was going to pay it back. When? When the business recovered. The same business that's now $500,000 in debt. Delilah stood up. This is ridiculous. Stefan, tell her to stop. Tell me to stop what? Asking questions about my own money? It's not your money, Laura snapped. It's family money. No, I said, standing up. It's my money. Money I inherited from my grandmother. Money I've been contributing to this family for years, while you all treated me like hired help. I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. Stefan, this is for you. His hands were shaking as he opened it. The divorce papers fell out onto the mahogany table like a declaration of war. Lucille, no. His voice was barely a whisper. You stole from me, I said. For 3 years, you took my money without asking, without telling me, to prop up a business that I have no stake in. I didn't steal. What would you call it? Morrison cleared his throat. Perhaps we should reschedule this meeting. No, I said. We're going to finish this right here, right now. I looked around the table at their shocked faces. You want to know what I think about family loyalty? I think loyalty is earned, and none of you have earned mine. Lucille, Laura said, her voice shaking, you're making a terrible mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. Stefan grabbed my arm. We can work this out. We can go to counselling. We can what? Pretend you didn't lie to me for 3 years? Pretend your family doesn't think I'm worthless? That's not true, isn't it? I looked at Laura. Tell him what you said to me at lunch, about how I'm nothing without this family. Laura's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Tell him how you've never once asked for my opinion on anything that matters. Lucille! Tell him how you all talk about me when I'm not in the room, how you call me cold and calculating and greedy. How do you know that? Delilah whispered. Because I have ears. And unlike you, I'm not stupid. Stefan was staring at the divorce papers. You can't do this. I already did. I'll fight you. I'll drag you through the most vicious divorce this city has ever seen. I smiled. With what money, Stefan? The money you stole from me? The money that's now back in my accounts? I'll destroy your reputation. Go ahead. I'm sure everyone will be very interested to hear about how you've been embezzling from your wife's trust fund. Morrison stood up. I think this meeting is over. Yes, I said, picking up my purse. It is. As I walked toward the door, I could hear them erupting behind me. Accusations, denials, panic. But I didn't look back. I was done looking back. I made it exactly 3 steps out of the conference room before Stefan caught up with me. Lucille, wait! I turned around. Behind him I could see the rest of the family through the glass doors, huddled around Morrison's desk like they were planning a war. There's nothing to wait for, Stefan. Yes, there is. We can fix this. How? By pretending you didn't steal from me? I didn't steal. Then what would you call taking money from my trust fund without permission? Stefan ran his hands through his hair. It was an emergency. The business needed what? My grandmother's money? It was temporary. For 3 years. I was going to tell you. When? When you needed more. Stefan grabbed my shoulders. Lucille, please, I love you. Do you? Because it feels like you love what I can do for you. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you asked me what I wanted? When's the last time you introduced me as anything other than my wife? Lucille, when's the last time you defended me to your family? Stefan's hands dropped to his sides. They're my family. And I'm your wife. Or I was. The conference room door opened behind us. Laura emerged first, followed by Caden and Delilah. Morrison stayed behind his desk, probably wishing he'd chosen a different profession. Lucille, Laura said, her voice ice-cold, I think you need to calm down and think about what you're doing. I am calm, and I have thought about it. You're destroying this family. I'm not destroying anything, I'm just not paying for it anymore. Caden stepped forward. You can't just walk away. We had an agreement. What agreement? The one where you assumed I'd hand over $500,000. The one where you said you'd help. I said I'd facilitate the transfer. I never said I'd give you my money. It's not just your money, Delilah shrieked. You're married. Not for much longer. Laura's composure finally cracked completely. You ungrateful little... Careful, I said quietly. Your mask is slipping. My mask? The one where you pretend to be a refined, elegant woman instead of what you really are. And what am I really? A manipulative bully who's spent 10 years trying to make me feel small. Laura's face went white. How dare you? How dare I what? Tell the truth? You have no idea what this family has done for you. You're right. I don't. Because you've never told me. You've just expected me to be grateful. You should be grateful. For what? For the privilege of managing Stefan's calendar? For cooking dinner parties where I'm treated like the help? For funding your son's lifestyle while being told I don't contribute anything? We never said... You said it 2 days ago, at lunch. You told me I was nothing without this family. Stefan looked at his mother in horror. Mom, you didn't. She needed to understand her place. Her place? Stefan's voice was rising. She's my wife. She's a gold digger who got lucky. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just exploded. Mom, Caden said. What? It's true. She married Stefan for his money and his name, and now she's trying to take us for everything we're worth. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. What's so funny? Delilah demanded. She thinks I married Stefan for his money. Didn't you? Delilah, I have more money than Stefan does. I've always had more money than Stefan does. That's impossible. Is it? My grandmother left me a trust fund worth $2 million. Stefan's net worth without the family business is maybe $300,000. The silence was deafening. 2 million, Caden whispered. 2.3, actually. It's been growing. Stefan was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. You never told me it was that much. You never asked. You just assumed it was some small inheritance. Why didn't you tell us? Laura demanded. Because it wasn't any of your business, and because I knew this would happen. What would happen? You'd all start seeing dollar signs instead of seeing me. That's not, isn't it? Look at you right now. You're not angry that I'm leaving Stefan. You're angry that I'm taking my money with me. Laura's mouth opened and closed without sound. You want to know the truth about our marriage? I looked at Stefan. I loved you. I really did. But somewhere along the way, you stopped being my husband and started being their son. Lucille. And they stopped pretending to accept me and started showing me who they really are. We are your family, Alejandro said quietly. He'd been so silent, I'd almost forgotten he was there. No, you're not. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't lie to each other. And family sure as hell doesn't tell each other they're worthless. I looked around at all of them one more time. You want to save the business? Figure it out yourselves. You want to maintain your lifestyle? Earn it yourselves. You want respect? Try showing some first. I turned to walk away, then stopped. Oh, and Stefan, don't bother coming home tonight. I've changed the locks. You can't do that. It's my house. I bought it with my trust fund money, remember? Lucille, please. Goodbye, Stefan. This time when I walked away, nobody followed me, but I could hear them shouting at each other all the way to the elevator. The story broke 3 days later. I was having coffee with Autumn when my phone started buzzing non-stop. Text after text, call after call. What's happening? Autumn asked, watching my phone light up like a Christmas tree. I picked up one of the calls. It was my neighbour, Mrs. Patterson. Lucille, dear, I just wanted you to know that there are reporters outside your house. Reporters? Something about the Gray family business going under. They're asking questions about you and Stefan. I hung up and immediately called another number. Autumn, we have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that involves news vans. Within an hour, we were watching the local news from Autumn's office. The anchor, a perfectly coiffed woman with serious eyes, was standing in front of Gray Industries. The Gray family business empire, a cornerstone of the community for over 50 years, filed for bankruptcy this morning after what sources describe as a catastrophic family dispute over emergency funding. The camera cut to file footage of Stefan at various charity events, always with me by his side, smiling and playing the perfect wife. Stefan Gray, son of prominent socialite Laura Gray, was reportedly counting on a significant financial injection from family sources to save the company. However, those sources have apparently withdrawn their support, leaving the business with no choice but to declare bankruptcy. My phone rang. Stefan. Don't answer it, Autumn said. The bankruptcy filing lists debts of over $2 million, the anchor continued, with creditors, including several major suppliers and the Internal Revenue Service. $2 million, I said. I thought Caden said it was $500,000. He lied, Autumn said simply. They all lied. The news report continued with interviews from former employees, all of whom seemed shocked by the sudden closure. Then the anchor delivered the kicker. Sources close to the family suggest that the dispute centres around Stefan Gray's wife, Lucille, who allegedly refused to provide the emergency funding needed to save the company. Mrs. Gray, who filed for divorce earlier this week, was not available for comment. Allegedly refused, I repeated, like it was my obligation. The vultures are circling, Autumn said. Stefan's trying to control the narrative. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognise. Mrs. Gray? This is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. I was wondering if you'd like to comment on the bankruptcy filing and your role in... I hung up. They're painting me as the villain, I said. Are you surprised? No, but I'm not going to let them get away with it. What do you mean? I mean it's time people knew the truth. Autumn leaned forward. Lucille, be very careful. Once you start talking to reporters, there's no taking it back. Good. I don't want to take it back. The next morning I called Jennifer Walsh back. Mrs. Gray, thank you for calling. Would you be willing to do an on-camera interview? Yes, but I have conditions. What kind of conditions? I want to see the questions in advance. I want editorial approval, and I want it to air unedited. That's unusual. So is having your husband steal from your trust fund for 3 years? There was a pause. We can work with that. The interview was scheduled for that afternoon. Autumn insisted on being there, along with a media consultant she'd hired. Remember, the consultant said, stay calm, stick to the facts, and don't let them bait you into saying anything emotional. I'm not emotional, I said. I'm angry. There's a difference. Jennifer Walsh was younger than she looked on TV, with sharp eyes and an aggressive handshake. The camera crew set up in Autumn's conference room, positioning me against a backdrop of law books. "Ready?" Jennifer asked. "Ready." The red light came on. "I'm here with Lucille Gray, whose refusal to provide emergency funding has led to the collapse of the Gray family business empire. Mrs. Gray, how do you respond to critics who say you've destroyed a 50-year-old company out of spite?" I looked directly into the camera. "I'd say those critics don't know what they're talking about. Can you elaborate?" The Gray family business was already bankrupt. They were $2 million in debt, not the $500,000 they told me. They wanted me to throw good money after bad. But surely, as Stephen Gray's wife, you had some obligation to help. I had an obligation to my husband, not to his family's mismanaged business. Some people are saying you're being vindictive because of your divorce. Some people don't know that my husband has been stealing from my trust fund for 3 years to prop up that same business. Jennifer's eyes widened. Stealing? Taking money without permission, using funds from my inheritance to pay business expenses. If that's not stealing, what is? Do you have proof of this? Bank records, 3 years' worth, $50,000 in unauthorized transfers. Why didn't you report this to the police? Because I was trying to save my marriage. I thought we could work it out privately. What changed your mind? His family's reaction when I asked questions about the money. They made it very clear that they saw me as a checkbook, not a person. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. His mother told me I was nothing without their family. His brother assumed I'd hand over $500,000 without question. His sister-in-law called me greedy for wanting to protect my own inheritance. What do you say to people who think you should have helped anyway? I say they're welcome to write their own checks. The interview aired that night. By the next morning, the narrative had completely shifted. My phone was still ringing constantly, but now the calls were supportive. Women sharing their own stories of financial abuse, lawyers offering to help with similar cases, even a few marriage counselors wanting to use my story as a teaching tool. Stefan called once. "You've destroyed us," he said. "No," I replied. "You destroyed yourselves. I just stopped paying for it." "I'll never forgive you for this." "I don't need your forgiveness, Stefan. I need you to sign the divorce papers." He hung up. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. "Aunt Lucille, I saw you on TV. You were amazing. I'm proud of you. Isla." I stared at the message for a long time. Maybe I hadn't destroyed everything after all. Maybe I'd just finally started building something that was actually mine. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, signed and notarized. Stefan had given up fighting after his lawyer explained that contesting a divorce based on financial fraud wasn't a winning strategy. I was sitting in my kitchen in my house, paid for with my money, when Autumn called. "It's official," she said. "You're free. How do you feel?" I looked around the quiet house. No Stefan's clothes on the floor, no family obligations on my calendar, no one expecting me to smile and serve and sacrifice. "Empty," I said honestly. "That's normal. You've been defined by that relationship for 10 years. I know, it's just strange. What are you going to do now?" Before I could answer, my doorbell rang. Through the window I could see a small figure on my porch. "Autumn, I have to go." I opened the door to find Isla standing there with a backpack and red-rimmed eyes. "Isla, what are you doing here?" "Mom and Dad are getting divorced too," she said. "Mom's moving back to her parents' house and I don't know where Dad's going." "Where are you supposed to be right now?" "At Grandma Laura's. But she's been crying for 3 days, and Grandpa Alejandro just sits in his chair staring at the wall." I stepped aside to let her in. "Does anyone know you're here?" I left a note. "Isla, I know you're not really my aunt anymore, but I didn't know where else to go." I knelt down to her level. "You're always welcome here, but your family is probably worried sick." Are they? Because it feels like everyone's too busy being angry to worry about anything else. I made her a sandwich and called Laura. The phone rang 6 times before she answered. What do you want? Her voice was hoarse. Isla's here. Thank God. Is she all right? She's fine, but Laura, she's scared. We're all scared, Lucille. You've destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped enabling it. Same thing. No, it's not, and you know it. There was a long pause. What do you want me to say? I want you to admit that you treated me terribly. I want you to admit that you never saw me as family. Lucille, and I want you to admit that you're not angry because I left Stefan. You're angry because I took my money with me. The silence stretched between us. You're right, Laura said finally. What? You're right. About all of it. I sat down hard in my kitchen chair. I wasn't expecting that. I've had a lot of time to think since the business collapsed. Since Stefan moved into that studio apartment. Since Caden started drinking again. Laura, I was jealous of you. Jealous? You had everything I never did. Your own money, your own career, your own choices. And instead of respecting that, I tried to make you small. Why? Because if you were small, then maybe I wasn't. I could hear her crying on the other end of the line. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know. Can I come get Isla? Of course. Will you let me apologize to her too for putting her in the middle of all this? That's between you and her. Laura arrived 20 minutes later, looking older than I'd ever seen her. Her perfect hair was dishevelled, her makeup smudged. She looked like a woman who'd lost everything, which I suppose she had. Hi, Grandma, Isla said quietly. Hi, sweetheart. Are you ready to come home? Is it still home if everyone's leaving? Laura's face crumpled. I don't know, baby. I honestly don't know. Can I stay here tonight? Isla asked, looking between us. Just tonight? Laura looked at me. Would that be all right? Of course. I'll pick her up tomorrow morning. We'll figure out what comes next. After Laura left, Isla and I ordered pizza and watched old movies. During a commercial break, she turned to me. Are you happy? I don't know yet. Ask me in a few months. Do you miss Uncle Stefan? I miss who I thought he was. That's sad. Yeah, it is. Are you going to be a lawyer again? I'm thinking about it. Good. You'd be a really good lawyer. How do you know? Because you're not afraid to tell the truth, even when it's hard. The next morning I walked Isla to Laura's car. Before she got in, she hugged me tight. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For showing me that it's okay to stand up for yourself. As they drove away, I realized Isla was right. I wasn't happy yet, but I wasn't unhappy either. I was something I hadn't been in 10 years. I was free. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Ms. Emerson, this is David Kim from Kim & Associates. We saw your interview and would like to discuss a position with our firm. Are you interested in returning to law? I stared at the message. Miss Emerson, not Mrs. Gray. My name, my identity, my choice. I typed back, very interested. When can we meet? The response came immediately. How about today? I looked around my quiet house, then at my reflection in the hallway mirror. For the first time in 10 years, I liked what I saw. A woman who'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. A woman who'd learned the difference between being alone and being lonely. A woman who'd discovered that sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. It was time to start over. And this time, I was going to do it right.